Hi everyone, my name is Shilpi and today I want to share few tips to care for orchids. Before I move how to care for orchid plant, I'd like to tell you a couple of things why I love my orchids. The flower blooms for almost 2 to 3 months and it stays flower stays for 2 to 3 months. And secondly, it blooms. If it is a healthy plant, it blooms twice a year. So for very long time you get to enjoy your orchid plants. And then since now I wish that everyone has one orchid plant, and if you don't have one, then probably you can try it out by going and getting it from Costco. I may be a little biased for Costco, but I do love the plants from Costco. It's healthy and much cheaper than any other place. On top of that, the container that decorative pot which it comes in, it is much prettier than any other place. So now I hope that I have convinced you to get one orchid plant if you don't have one. And I like to talk few things about orchids, a few tips and tricks how to take care of it. It's a very low maintenance plant. You do not need to do much for it, just neglect it and it does great. There are only two things you need to do for an orchid: take care of sunlight, and second is watering. For sunlight, it does not need a very bright, very harsh sunlight. So usually a east or west facing window is great, where the morning or evening sun is not very harsh for the plant. Do not put that in the south window. That sun is too harsh for orchid. You can always place the orchid somewhere in any brightly lit place. It's in the corner of your counter. That's a great place as well. Now moving to watering schedule. Orchid does not need lot of water. It needs just little water and that's good enough for it. And it also depends on what kind of potting mix your orchid is being planted. I have seen usually two kinds of potting mix. One is called bark. This looks like a wooden chip, but this does not retain much water. So if your orchid is planted in a bark, then you need to water it every week. Secondly, uh, second type of potting mix is moss. This looks like a web. So if you have your orchid in a moss, then you may need to water between 2 to 3 weeks, depending on your moss. Check the moss if you touch it, and if it is still moist after 2 weeks, then wait for another week and water it once it's completely dry. And now I'm moving to how to water the orchids. Lot of times in the tag you have seen that just placing 2 or 3 ice cubes. The reason I understand that is an easy way of explaining it, that just let the water water in the plant for some time, run the water in the plant for some time, and that's what ice does. Like when it slowly melts in the plant, it lets the bark or the moss absorb that water. Preferably, I like to water it by putting it under the running water for a few minutes, and so just let it run through until the water, you see that water starts dripping from the bottom of the pot. And one very important thing here is, don't water the plant in the decorative pot. Most of the time these orchid comes under like one plastic container which sits under a decorative pot. So always take out the plastic container from the decorative pot, let the water run through, and while you're after watering, let it sit on the counter for a few minutes. That will give it enough time to drain the excess water. In that way, when you are putting back in the decorative pot, it will not be sitting in the pool of water, and if it sits in the pool of water, the chances of rotting the root is there. So few miscellaneous uh, points I like to share with you today. Some of you have asked that my orchid has not flowered for last couple of years. Does that mean it dead? It is dead? No, it is not. It is still working on it. If your roots, like if you have roots which are harder, it has new leaves coming in. That means it's just growing to get it bigger. For instance, this orchid plant did not flower for 2 years, and finally when it came out, there were 4 branches of it, and there are more coming in. So this is been there for last 2-3 months, and now I have covered all that is needed to take care of the orchid when it is blooming. Now I would like to talk little bit about when it is not blooming. In that case, for example, I have this orchid which has been done. So what I have done is that I have cut the stem of this orchid and letting it sit in the any humid place. And for me, bathroom works great. It sits in the bathroom, and then other than that, I water it as I am watering all my flowering orchid. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope this helps.